What do you regret finding out? Learning from my sister that my father told her that my mom's mom was not paralyzed from the waist down because she fell off a fence. It is that she was beaten so badly by the man she was seeing at the time. There are some pieces of In This World's Sad Face. You could wake up mid-surgery, or amnesia awareness, where you feel all the pain from a surgery but you're asleep, and the surgery goes on for hours. Usually your heart rate will rise significantly, so they will more than likely know that this is happening to you and will stop. At least this is what I've heard. I could be wrong. Hopefully I'm not. Lol. That I'm not very smart. I'm not dumb or dim, but I've really had to come to terms with the fact that not only am I not the smartest man in the room, I'm probably near the stupidest. This realization actually makes you a step above average in terms of the check out this you are actually in the valley of despair. Keep improving yourself and you'll be all smarted with enough time. IDK if I'm under this effect, but I'm constantly trying to figure out if I'm actually smart or if it's just what everybody keeps telling me to make me feel better, which results in me questioning it, which led to me learning that smart people question their intelligence, which made me question it more, and at this point I've just thrown the argument away because it just gives me a headache. But if you guys have any solutions, that would be great. Finding out my ex had slept with my uncle and 3 of my friends. I could see 1 or 2 friends, but 3 friends and an uncle. An uncle might not be a traditional much older uncle. I played football with an uncle, nephew who were less than a year apart. Kinda like a brother at that point. Or maybe she banged his 60-year-old uncle. What do I know? That my dad abused my sister. This comment is kind of maybe blowing up, so I wanted to clarify something. I wasn't the one that found out. My sister confronted him and legal proceedings began. One night my mom got all of us together and told us. Mine was that my grandfather sexually abused both my sisters and potentially my female cousins. Also brought back some of my own memories. I don't wish something like that on anyone. Hope you're doing okay. I always blamed my best friend's erratic behavior on mental health issues until one day I found her passed out on my toilet and realized that her behavior always got erratic after bathroom visits. Unfortunately, she may have mental health issues, but an addiction to certain drugs was the reason for most of her behavior. There was one girl in our friend group with a hyper, crazy, fun mom, and when we were about 18, one other girl went so. Mom was on cocaine the entire time, right? And the rest of us were like, oh my god. If I had a manager at one of my first jobs as a teenager that I loved, he was always energetic and fun to be around. After I left though, he seemed to disappear. I went in one day and asked about him and the employee said, oh, you mean the cocked up guy? Blew my innocent teenage mind. The real reason why half of my dad's side of the family doesn't speak to us. We were always told it was that they just weren't that close and also had some mental health issues. But we learned after my dad died the truth because no one on his side of the family came to the funeral. They opted to have their own. Turns out that my parents had trouble conceiving. This I knew. I also know me and my twin are IVF babies and we were born very premature. I'm talking 1 pound baby premature. Shortly after, my mom developed breast cancer. What I didn't know was that during this time my dad was also taking care of his sick mother as well as looking after his sick wife and 2 newborn preemies. He ended up asking his brother to help look after their mother since he'd been the one doing it so he could care for his family more. Well, soon after my dad spent more time with us versus his mom. She took a turn for the worse and died, and my father's brother blamed him for abandoning the family and blamed my twin and I for the death of our grandmother, because if we weren't born my mother wouldn't have gotten estrogen-positive breast cancer, and also, they were all very Catholic and IVF was a sin. I never met my grandmother. I'm named for her, but apparently an entire side of the family thinks it's mine and my sister's fault she's dead. Then they're idiots, frankly. Yeah, I did find out that my dad's other brother loved us and didn't blame us and met us when we were just born, but I don't remember him because he died when I was maybe 2. Officially, he died of pneumonia, and if you Google him that's what I'll say, but he actually died of AIDS, which was just buried. People didn't want to talk about it then, I guess. That my mom knew my stepfather was abusing me and did nothing. Same here. Now they're both out of my life. I didn't find out until after they had both died. If I had to know. I wish I could have at least learned about it before she died so I could have confronted her about it. My brother's girlfriend's NSFW Reddit account. It's supposed to be a couple's account, so you might guess the horrors I saw in there. I regret just finding out that my brother found out about my girlfriend's NSFW account. Nice try. Almost gave me a heart attack. So top marks anyway. How many cockroaches there are in Australia? The one that climbed my foot as I sat in the evening gaming freaked me out. Also be aware that bush cockroaches are pretty huge, and with the recent fires a lot have kind of migrated. It's something that my parents regret not telling my brother at an early age he's adopted. I regret finding out that a priest I used to admire was a pedophile and has since been defrocked. He needs to be decocked. What my sister and her boyfriend were doing in the bubble bath. I bet those sick were holding hands. You know who has hands? The devil. And he uses them for holding. What tinnitus is. Now I can't stop hearing its sad face. I've heard the ringing for so long that I just assumed everyone heard it. When I finally went to the VA and they put the headphones on me for the audiology exam, I couldn't believe how deafening the ringing really was in the silence. After I talked with them and found out that it wasn't normal, I was shocked. It seems to get worse when I'm really stressed out, but I don't know if it really is, or if it's just my imagination. Not sure if you already knew this, but white noise, even softly, can cancel out tinnitus. Looking on my ex-chief's phone when we were on a trip to Ithaca, NY, I would take any physical pain I've had so far over that I felt when I saw the things on there. Totally gut-wrenching. I wanted to marry her. I'm just glad it happened before you married her. A Russian proverb. Esli k drugo mu hodat nevestatu nezvestno komu povezlo. If the bride leaves for another man, it's unknown who got lucky. In this case, you got lucky. Good luck one with the next GF smiley face. When I was around 10 years old, I was sitting on the couch and my older sister came towards me with a knife and stabbed a hole in the cushion about a foot from my leg. She pulled the knife out and immediately told me not to tell Dad. I was young and naive and my sister had kind of twisted sense of humor, so I really didn't know what to think. It definitely did some damage now that I look back on it. Years later my sister announced that she had planned to attack me with the knife, but chickened out at the last moment. At this point I had all but moved on from the incident, but this brought it all back and then some. What the actual? Right. When was this announced? Was it just at a family dinner and she was like, funny story, I tried to murder you. Anyways, pass the chicken please. The details of my parents' divorce. Thanks monsieur. Same boat. My mother used to rant all day about how awful my father was. Everything she told me was a lie. I got both sides lying for all my life. They divorced at 2, now I'm 19, so I've no idea what actually happened and what didn't. Realizing I'm not all that okay with being a loner. It was easier when I didn't care that I had very few friends. As I get older, the fact that I have so few friends is starting to bother me more and more. Unamused face. The older I get, the more I realize that I might actually really enjoy and need the company of others. I always prided myself on being a self-sufficient loner, but it's quite nice to have a tribe now. Might stick with it. My father never wanted me and actually told my mother that if she had me, he'd spend his life making both of us miserable. She was convinced that once he saw me, he'd change his mind. She was very, very wrong. My dad often says how much happier he would have been if he and my mother never had children. I feel your pain. Person shrugging, light skin tone. I'm sorry. It sucks. What the Mr. Hands video is. What is it? Dude getting fucked by a horse. When I was about 14, my mom took me to a tattoo shop to get her nipples pierced. While the procedure was happening, she turned to me and said, "Your dad bites harder than that." I could have lived without that info. About my mom, my cousin. Woke up in the middle of the night hearing her say his name. Ugh. Haunting. Editing to add, Grandpa's brother's son. Dear God, I'm sorry EW, that my ex sabotaged a condom to try and stop me from joining the military. This is how you get stuck alone with a baby. Well, she's now divorced me but doesn't stop me from seeing him. I only found out about the condom through a mutual friend. Just how close my pilonidal cyst was to making contact with my spine. I had an open wound for a year because the first surgeon was a joke and it ripped immediately, and he told me to take sick baths to help it close up naturally. By the time 11 months later I got the second surgery, it was apparently only millimeters from tunneling to my spine, which could have caused me infection or death. I wish I never knew how close it was. BC, I am terrified it's still tunneling on the inside, even though completely closed now on the outside. Pilonidal cysts are way more painful than anyone who hasn't had them could understand. Sorry you're going through this and they didn't get it right the first time. After my dad died, my mom, before she died, said he always felt my struggles were because of him accidentally dropping me down the stairs as a baby. I struggled in school with math and physically I have a form of muscular dystrophy, but we didn't know that at the time, so he believed my physical issues were his fault. It apparently ate him up and helped fuel parts of his depression. I didn't need to know that. It's not your fault that this was something his depression latched onto. It just means he loved you and wanted to protect you and felt he failed in his duty. Not that you failed. It was his struggle and nothing to do with you. Edit. Since my comment wasn't clear to some people, but this was something his depression latched onto, I meant that OP's father still very well may have been depressed even in a world where OP had no difficulties whatsoever. Depression finds things to latch onto. That doesn't mean OP's situation isn't really difficult and that this wasn't really hard to learn. I only meant to offer reassurance, not imply that OP is making it all about the monsieur. My wife told me she doesn't like having and would prefer if we just didn't, so that's a great day. This is somehow worse. I'm sorry man. My dad mentioning how tight my mother is. Thanks dad. She's got a nice rack too. Do you have pictures? I love pictures. The traumatic events that happened when I was 5 that my brain deliberately forgot until recently, because it's just bad. You are not alone friend. I have had some horrible memories beginning to surface the last 5 years. They are still disjointed, but it's not good that I was in my relationships. Turns out I've become the person I was afraid of becoming my entire life. My dad, a jealous dude with anger management issues who never sees his own faults. To be fair though, I've come a long way since my best friend straight up told me what I've become and that if I stayed that way she was going to stop being friends with me. I guess I don't regret finding out because it helped me get my together. However, the fact that you were the reason some of your friends cut ties with you is a pretty hard pill to swallow, especially knowing that you'll never get to make it up to some of them because it's been years. Why should they care at this point?